Alright, we are here in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, people, we are breaking down Bellator 162 Shlemenko versus Grove in Memphis, Tennessee this Friday, October 21st. So, first things first, I made a Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez breakdown video. I put that up on Monday. If you haven't checked that out yet, check it out. Put a lot of work into that. You know, I watched all their fights in a very fast way. I just watched them all straight in a row. Thankfully, Conor McGregor puts a lot of guys away fast, so that didn't take long to watch all of his fights. I just wanted to have all their fights fresh in my mind to give the most accurate breakdown possible. So, you know, go check that out. Another thing, you know, follow me on Twitter. I love interacting with people. You know, hit me up, ask me what my thoughts are and things. You can talk shit on the things I say. You can agree with the things I say. You can tell me I need a fucking haircut, because I know I do. I know, a couple days. But another thing, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm really happy. I've got 25 subscribers. It's not a whole lot, but I'm happy with it. It's more than I thought I'd have at this point. But, you know, show some love, man. I put a lot of work into these videos, and I appreciate the love very much. So, let's get into it, man. Bellator 162. 16 fight cards, so I'm not going to be breaking down all 16 fights in the way I usually do. Some of these towards the bottom of guys that have bad records, like 10-11 and 14-8. You know, I'm just going to go over those in like 20 seconds. But, yeah, man, let's get into it. So we got... first fight of the night, Mike Wessel, UFC veteran, Tough 10 alum, 14-8, taking on Frank Tate, 4-1 in a heavyweight bout. So, I'm going to go with Frank Tate here. Mike Wessel has looked pretty shot lately. He's been KO'd in the first round 4 out of his last 6 fights. So, it's pretty tough, man. And Frank Tate, although he hasn't faced the kind of competition Mike Wessel has, you know, he's been starching guys in a matter of seconds. And I do think Frank Tate, the younger, fresher, hungrier fighter, is going to be able to go out there and starch Mike Wessel in the first round. So I do have Frank Tate, first round KO there. Next up is Chad Cook, 10-11 record, taking on Grady Hurley, 12-1 in a 205-pound bout. It's funny though, Grady Hurley, his only loss was his second fight of his career in 2001, and it was to no other than Chad Cook, which is... It's funny, man, but, you know, based on their records, obviously you can tell Grady Hurley has made the improvements since then. You know, he's evolved a lot more as a fighter. So I will go with Grady Cook to avenge his only loss in a second-round TKO here. I do like Grady Hurley. So next up, a fight I do want to get into a little bit. 2 6-0 guys. 6-0 Jaleel Willis taking on 6-0 Omar Johnson in a 160-pound catch weight. So, you know, both these guys are really good. They're both well-rounded. This is a really tough fight to call. Omar Johnson is a little bit more of an active fighter. This is like his 4th fight in 2016. Jaleel Willis fights like once a year. Omar Johnson, I think he trains out of a better camp, Spartan. If you don't know, Eric Anders, who is also on this card, he's a college football champion with Alabama, who's a linebacker for them, and he transitioned over to MMA. He's just an athletic specimen, just a real blue-chip prospect, and he's Omar Johnson's #1 training partner. Those guys go at it every day, so I'm sure he improves the hell out of Omar Johnson. So I am going to go with Omar Johnson via a 29-28 decision here. You know, Jaleel Willis is good, but I'm just going to slightly go with Omar there, just based on the activity and the better camp, in my opinion. But next up, Jonathan Burdine, 6-5, taking on James Wallace, 3-1 in a 155-pound bout. Big age difference here, man. Jonathan Burdine is 37, James Wallace is 23, and you know, Jonathan Burdine, it seems like he either finishes or gets finished, and James Wallace's 1 loss was a decision. His other 3 wins were finishes. So I will go with the younger, hungrier, more athletic fighter here to finish Jonathan Burdine via a first-round submission. I just think he's got more skills. He's more athletic, quicker. This is probably just a bad matchup for Burdine here. So next up, good fight here. I like this fight. Tyler Hill, 6-0, taking on Wade Johnson, 10-1. It's funny, these guys fought as amateurs. I believe Wade Johnson was Tyler Hill's only loss, pro or amateur. Wade Johnson got him in a first-round submission back like 5 years ago, and You know, both guys have gotten a lot better since then. Tyler Hill, he's a very good striker, man. He's a Muay Thai fighter, too. You can look up his Muay Thai fights on YouTube. He's a very good striker. And, you know, Wade Johnson is a good striker, too. Also, both these guys are very tall for the weight class. Tyler Hill is 6'4", Wade Johnson 6'2". Two tall strikers here. But honestly, I do like Wade Johnson to repeat history here and get a first-round submission. I just think he has more tools. You know, Tyler Hill might be a little bit better of a striker, but I think Wade Johnson's the more well-rounded fighter here. More tools in his bag if shit hits the fan, you know. I do like Wade Johnson first-round submission here in a fight that I do think will be a banger as long as it lasts. So next up, more heavyweights. We got Dan Charles 10-3, taking on Virgil Zwicker 14-5. Virgil Zwicker is funny. He's a 205 pounder. He actually has a knockout win over Ovince St. Preux, which is pretty crazy. But you know, two sluggers here. These guys aren't really the most athletically gifted. But, you know, they both come out of good camps. Dan Charles trains at Power MMA, Virgil Zwicker with Team Quest. I just think Dan Charles has more tools to use here, and he's the bigger guy. So I'm just going to go with him, although I'm not very confident at all. They're probably just going to swing until someone gets put away. But I'm going to go with Dan Charles via second-round TKO here. Dan Charles, I just think he's the slightly better fighter here. But it would not surprise me at all if Virgil Zwicker went out and got the KO. But, you know, tough fight to call. There's a lot of heavyweight fights on this card. They're all tough to call. But Dan Charles is the pick here. Next up, the guy I was just talking about earlier, Eric Anders, 5-0, taking on Brian White, 6-4, in a 185-pound bout. So I'm going to go with Eric Anders here, man. He's the legit prospect. I'm just learning about him this week. Shout out to Daniel Levy, Best Fight Picks, with Half the Battle. He had an interview with Eric Anders this weekend. It was very good. I like Eric Anders. He's got a good mind on him. You know, like I said, college football champion, linebacker for Alabama. You know, he's got that championship mindset. And I think he's a very good prospect in MMA here. You know, he's well-rounded, too. He's very explosive. He puts forth pressure. He's just everything you could ask for. And Brian White, you know, he's 6-4. And those 6 wins were against guys that are like 0-0, 0-1, 0-2, 1-1. So Bellator knew what they were doing here. They're just giving Eric Anders a showcase fight. So I do like Eric Anders to win via a first-round TKO. So next up, Chase Gormley, at a 260 or heavyweight fight, 13-5, taking on Bobby Brents, 17-5. Chase Gormley, another UFC veteran. He had 2 fights. He got submitted by Stefan Struve in the first round, and then he got knocked out by Brendan Schaub in the first round. But Bobby Brents, man, I like this Bobby Brents guy. He reminds me of Roy Nelson. I'm dubbing him the Black Roy Nelson, man. He's got the same build as Roy Nelson. He's got the same style as Roy Nelson. Obviously, he's not as good, but he's a very good boxer, man. And Chase Gormley has gotten knocked out quite a few times. You know, I think Chase Gormley might have the wrestling advantage here. He could bring it down to the mat, but I think the more likely outcome here is Bobby Brents to get a first-round KO, and that is my pick. I think Bobby Brents is going to box Gormley up. You know, Gormley has always had troubles with striking, and I think Bobby Brents is going to be able to expose that. You know, Bobby is very athletic for the Roy Nelson build he has. You know, you can make the argument that you'd like to see guys like Bobby Brents and Roy Nelson drop the weight and go down to like 205, even 185, but the fat gives those guys the power, man. You can make the argument that if they go and drop the food that they're eating and go on diets, they're just going to start losing their mental power, man. And Roy Nelson, you know, the cheeseburgers and pizza, it gives them happiness, man. And that's what gives them the power to go out there and do Roy Nelson things. And I think Bobby Brents is the same, man. Bobby Brents' build might actually even be worse than Roy Nelson's here. He's a big boy. But I am going to go with Bobby Brents via first-round KO here. Next up, Julia Budd, the Jewel, taking on Arlene Blencowe at a 145-pound bout. Julia Budd, if you don't know who Julia Budd is, she is possibly the second best 145-pound woman in the world, man. She is a very underrated fighter. She's got great wrestling, good submission game. She's just a very good fighter. I'd love to see her take on Cyborg. I don't have they fought before. I can't remember if they fought before. You know, Julia Budd. She's just a beast, man. I definitely see her going out there and taking down Arlene Blencowe. I think Blencowe could possibly not get submitted. She could defend the submissions, but it's going to be hard for her to get back up, man. No, Julia Budd has never faced Cyborg. I'd love to see that fight. But Blencowe, I just don't think... I don't think she's going to be able to get up. She's going to have the striking advantage, possibly. So if she can avoid takedowns, that makes for an actual fight. But Julia Budd's most likely just going to grind this one out to a 30-27, and a submission would not surprise me. But the pick is with Julia Budd. Next up, Steve Garcia Jr., 6-1, taking on Ronnie Lawrence, 3-0. Steve Garcia Jr., 6-1, but his one split decision loss was BS. He should be 7-0. So these are two guys that should be undefeated here. It's a really toss-up fight, close-ass fight, man. This is a great fight. These guys, they're both super slick strikers, big power for their division, 135. You know, I can't wait to just sit back and watch this fight. These two young guys going at it. This fight is really a coin toss in my eyes. But I am going to go with Steve Garcia Jr. here based on one thing. He trains at Jackson's. And Ronnie Lawrence, I'm not sure what camp he even trains at. So I think Steve Garcia, you know, evolving a lot faster at Jackson's. And he's going to have a good game plan behind him. So just based on that, since I think it's that much of a coin toss fight, I will go with Steve Garcia Jr. just with the fact that he trains at Jackson's. And I will pick him to win via a second round TKO. So next up, we got Baby Slice, Kevin Ferguson Jr. 0-0, taking on Rick Bing 0-0. Two guys making their pro debut here. You know, Kevin Ferguson, he's 1-0 as an amateur. He starts dude in like a minute. And Rick Bing, I've seen a bunch of different records for him on different websites, but the most reoccurring one I saw was 1-4. So, you know, Bellator know what they're doing here. They just want to get Baby Slice that big first win. And that's what I think is going to happen, man. Rick Bing is not very good at all. He is quite possibly one of the worst fighters I have watched. And, you know, he'd still kick my ass, but he's just not very good at all. You know, obviously we haven't seen any of Kevin Ferguson's wrestling or ground game. Rick Bing, he doesn't really have much to offer there anyway, but I think Kevin Ferguson training at Body Shop, the gym with AJ McKee Jr., Emmanuel Newton. You know, they got some good guys there. And I just think Kevin Ferguson's going to go out there and starch Rick Bing. First round KO. Not much to talk about here. 2 0-0 guys. But capping off the prelims, we got Ricky Rainey, 11-4, taking on Gilbert Smith, 12-5. So we got a striker versus grappler here. Ricky Rainey, the striker. Gilbert Smith, the grappler. Gilbert Smith, former 185-pounder, out of the tough season with Uriah Hall and Kelvin Gastelum. You know, Gilbert Smith has caught a second win in his career, man. He's gotten some good wins lately. He lost his last fight, his Bellator debut against Fernando Gonzalez. That fight could have gone either way, man. That was very close. I believe on MMA decisions, all the guys, they had it split down right in the middle for that fight. So it could have gone either way. But, you know, Ricky Rainey, every time he steps up in competition, you know, fights guys like Diego Lima, Michael Venom Page, Chidi Njokuani, he just gets outclassed, man. And I wouldn't say Gilbert Smith is as good as those guys, but he's definitely better than all the guys that Ricky Rainey has beat. I just think Gilbert Smith, he's gotten some good wins lately, man. UFC veteran Bristol Morende he beat recently. Ben Smith, who's a very good prospect in RFA, he beat him via armbar. I like Gilbert Smith to grind out Ricky Rainey here to a 30-27 decision. So here we go onto the main card here. These are the fights that'll have the lines on them most likely, so I will give some betting advice here. Although I will say these fights are hard to bet on, man. These are very close fights. So first, kicking off the main card with Goiti Yamauchi. Very hard name to say, I'm so sorry. But Ryan Couture, 10-4. Goody, 19-3, 155-pound bout. Goody making his 155-pound debut. You know, so we got a wrestler in Ryan Couture taking on a jiu-jitsu specialist in Goody. You know, Goody lost his last fight against Bubba Jenkins via wrestling. You know, Bubba Jenkins kind of laid out the blueprint just to lay on the guy, batter him up a little bit, avoid submissions, don't do anything too crazy. You know, Ryan Couture, he's a bigger guy than Bubba Jenkins. Obviously, there's a 155-pound bout, but he's not the wrestler Bubba Jenkins is. Bubba Jenkins is an NCAA champion, and I think Ryan Couture eventually, you know, he'll get some takedowns, but eventually he'll make a mistake, and Goody will capitalize, man. He's very good on the mat. He's a very good grappler. He's 19-3 for a reason. I do have Goody via a second-round submission here, but that's a tough fight to bet on, man. I wouldn't unless the odds are very close, or if Ryan Couture is even a very big underdog, because I do think he'll be the underdog. So I would stay away from this fight pretty much unless Couture is a big underdog, or you can get a really good price on Goody, like a -130. But yeah, man, Goody second round sub is my pick. So next up we got Hisaki Kato, 6-2, taking on AJ Matthews, 8-5, in a 185-pound bout. It's an interesting fight, man. Hisaki Kato is an absolute wild man. He's a good striker, big power. You know, if you don't know, he knocked out Joe Schilling, kickboxing bout, knocked him out in an MMA bout. If you don't know who Joe Schilling is, one of the best kickboxers in the world. Now, Kato's a beast, and AJ Matthews likes to just go in there and brawl, and that's going to be tough with Kato, man. Kato's going to make him pay for that, and most likely knock him out. AJ, he's 8-5, but he had a crazy win on his record. He should be 7-6. He's won 2 out of his last 6, but it should be 1 out of his last 6, man. His last win against this Argentinian guy, the Argentinian guy went out there and won the first round, and then he just quit on the stool. He told his corner, I don't feel good, I don't want to fight, and just quit. And AJ Matthews got the win, but man, he's a 500 fighter, and Hisaki Kato, he's such a good striker. AJ Matthews is a guy that he's just going to be able to go out there and KO rather easily. So, you know, I do think AJ might have the wrestling advantage. I wouldn't be surprised if he utilized some tools to, you know, take down Hisaki, maybe even get a submission. You know, it's tough. We haven't seen enough out of Hisaki's game. Usually his fights are just stand-up, but I think Hisaki is a rather solid pick here, and you know, if you can get a good enough price on him, I would place a bet on Hisaki Kato, maybe even inside the distance. So next up, Bobby Lashley, 14-2, versus Josh Appelt, 12-5 in the co-main event heavyweight bout. So Bobby Lashley, man, there's not much to say here. We know what Bobby Lashley likes to go in and do. He likes to utilize his wrestling, take guys down, beat them up. You know, Josh Appelt, he's not the greatest guy in the world, but, you know, he's very tough. He's very tough. I think if you can somehow stuff the takedowns, he can, you can knock Bobby Lashley out. We saw Bobby lose to James Thompson. We saw him lose to the Gravedigger, Chad Griggs. You know, I wouldn't surprise me if Bobby Lashley went out there and lost, but I think he's a very solid pick here to grind out Appelt, tire him out, and TKO him in the second round, and that is my pick. And then I wouldn't bet on him because he's most likely going to be some crazy -500 favorite. So if you can get a good enough price on Bobby Lashley, maybe parlay him up with Hisaki Kato, maybe. But I don't know, man. I'm most likely just going to stay away from all 4 of these fights. But next up, the main event of the evening, Alexander Shlemenko taking on Kendall Grove. Shlemenko 53-9. Kendall Grove 23-15, 185-pound bout. So this is an awesome fight, man. You know, I was really big on Shlemenko to win this fight before I did tape study. I was like 80% Shlemenko. But I don't know, man. Kendall Grove, he's a beast. And he's been looking good. Sorry, my dog's barking. You know, Kendall, he's 23-15. Shlemenko, 53-9. We usually know how fights with between guys with those records go, But Kendall, you know, he has losses to tough guys, and it's just a tough match. You know, this is just a weird matchup because Shlemenko, his biggest struggle is against guys that use their size against Shlemenko. You know, big guys like Tito and Halsey, his most two recent losses. They just overpowered Shlemenko and submitted him in the first round. And Kendall Grove, he's a 6'6" dude. He's a huge dude, and he's got very good jiu-jitsu. He's got those long limbs. It's tough, man. This is a very, very close fight. It's really tough to call. I would say that Shlemenko is probably going to be the favorite, but you know, I think if Kendall can, you know, survive the storm here early, because I think Shlemenko is going to go out and throw some bombs in the first round. I think Kendall could grind him out and maybe get a takedown and work a submission, but I think Shlemenko could survive it, man. I don't know. This is just such a tough fight to call. But I'm going to go with Alexander Shlemenko via a decision here. I think he'll be able to outstrike Kendall Grove for at least 2 out of the 3 rounds, and then the third round, maybe Kendall can grind him out on the ground. This is just a toss-up fight for me. I'm absolutely not going to bet it unless Kendall Grove is some kind of big, like, plus 300 underdog. So, you know, besides, this is just a dogger pass. There's no lines out yet, but Kendall Grove is a big underdog. I would absolutely be open to playing him. But, yeah, man, I do like Shlemenko via a 29-28 decision. So, that's Bellator 162, guys. That's all I got for you. You know, follow me on Twitter, subscribe, like the video, do it up, hit me up on Twitter. Love to talk to people. You know, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Not sure what my next video is going to be. I don't know what cards there are next week. I think there's an RFA card. I don't know if I'm going to do a breakdown for that. But, you know, thanks for watching. Like the video. Enjoy the fights.